You're online. Please acknowledge that. Mike Alley,
Present.
Dennis Bland,
Present.
Annie Bowen, Judd Fisher,
Here.
Bill Hanna,
Present.
yay! Al Hubbard.
Here.
All right, thank you. Nancy Jordan. Here. Chris Lamote,
Here.
Shad Lockmiller,
Here.
and welcome. Pepper Mulherin. Present. Dan Peterson. I know he's here. Tom Saunders. I know he's here. And Erica Studerman. Has anyone seen her? Oh, yeah, I'm here too. Sherman, we do have a quorum.
Hi, thank you, Erica. I would second the welcome to Dr. Chad Lockmiller to the commission. Dr. Lockmiller is the new faculty commission member for the 2023-2025 term. Dr. Lockmiller serves as the associate professor and chair of the Department of Education Leadership and Policy Studies from Indiana University. He brings a tremendous amount of experience and insight for education policy through K-12 and higher ed. So, yeah, thank you. I want to also add that Commission Member Dennis Bland now serves as their chair of the Academic Affairs and Quality Committee. So thank you, Dennis. I wanted to make a quick note of a significant meeting regarding the precedence of our public institutions. In late November, the governor will host a gathering in his residence for college and university leaders in Indianapolis. This is important because of the continuing effort to speak with one voice about why post-secondary education matters. Previous meetings tied up with communication and strengthened the case for sustaining and increasing funding for education. The meeting will be another step in making the case for better educated students, a stronger economy, and a more enlightened state population. On a broader topic, as we see the lag effect of the pandemic continue to unveil itself, one thing I've observed in East Central Indiana is the shrinking volunteer base within our communities. Besides the lack of community support for several nonprofits, an absence of volunteers from local higher education institutions has been cited as a problem. An encouraging word from our colleges and universities might help turn this one part of the issue around. This concludes my remarks for the day, so I'm going to be brief there. So I'm going to now ask Dr. Debbie Ford, the Chancellor of Indiana University Southeast, to address the group today.
Good morning,
Good morning.
Commissioner Lowry, Chairman Fisher, and members of the Indiana Commission for Higher Education, and of course, our staff and our guests. Welcome to Indiana University Southeast. We are thrilled to be hosting your fall meeting today. I'm Debbie Ford, and I have the honor of serving as the Chancellor here at IU Southeast, and I am in my first 3 months. So I am in a learning phase and really enjoying every moment. Indiana University Southeast is one of the southernmost institutions of higher education in the state of Indiana. And we serve a vital mission of representing the core Indiana educational system to citizens in 11 Indiana counties and 8 counties in Kentucky. More than 86% of our students come from right here in this region. And following graduation, more than 80% of our graduates are making this region grow and thrive. This is what public education is all about. Educating our citizens, elevating the lives of our students to attain their dreams, and creating the next generation of leaders who contribute to the future of our region and our state. Since the last visit of the Commission, Indiana University Southeast has been hard at work, transforming our programs and impacting lives. We are laser focused on student success and opportunity, building a student experience around personalized one-on-one relationships between faculty and students. And from the tour yesterday, I know you got a chance to see that come to life. We offer rich hands-on experiences and experiential learning in all of our programs from the first year on campus, while developing meaningful relationships between faculty, staff, and students, and also with our business and industry partners and decision makers to elevate IU Southeast as a regional partner for success and economic growth. Student success and opportunity, transformative research and creativity, and service to Indiana and beyond are the three pillars of the IU 2030 strategic plan. Here at Indiana University Southeast, we remain laser focused on our outcomes to recruit, retain, and graduate our students. This fall, we are excited to report that we saw an increase, 6.4% increase in our undergraduates and a 4.7% increase in our graduate students. Undergraduate adult learners now represent more than 20% of our student population. 84% of our degree-seeking graduate and undergraduate students from last fall are enrolled and engaged in classes this fall. And although not official just yet, early indicators point to the highest first-year full-time retention rate in the history of IU Southeast at about 67%. Now that's worth a round of applause for this campus. The tides have changed at Indiana University Southeast, and they have changed for the positive. Likewise, as a newcomer to the state, the Indiana Commission for Higher Education has changed. And I might add, we here really like what we see. Be it the supportive messages around the importance of a higher ed degree or the positive changes in performance funding that give meaningful and achievable goals to set our sights on higher achievement, we feel that we have a true partner with you in the commission. You are keeping higher education in the state accountable, but giving us the tools to achieve the goals we must achieve to keep our state and our region competitive in this global economy. Before I turn the meeting back over to you, Chairman Fisher, I would like to, if you would join me and thank the team here at Indiana University Southeast for hosting today's meeting, and also the team at the Indiana Commission for Higher Education for all of their hard work to make this possible. Let's give them a round of applause. And then this morning, we received a message from one of our students who had the honor of having lunch with Commissioner Lowry and Commissioner Ann Bowen yesterday. And I'd like to share Jenna's note. She just wanted to give Amanda Stonecipher, our Vice Chancellor for Student Engagement, she wanted to give her a quick thank you for the invite to lunch with the Indiana Commission on Higher Education yesterday. I had a wonderful time discussing IU Southeast, as well as my personal experience with the commissioner and his fellow staff. He was genuinely so appreciative and interested in each and every single one of us as students, and I was inspired by his passion. I've been reflecting on the experience as a whole, and I keep coming back to the same conclusion. I am very grateful and blessed to attend a school that continuously invites students to the table. I consistently feel seen, heard, and valued, which is absolutely incredible. Thank you for providing me with such an awesome opportunity, Jenna. This is what it's all about here at IU Southeast, and of course, in the commission and all of us in higher education. I welcome you and our esteemed guests today, and I wish you well in your meetings. Welcome to IU Southeast. Thank you.
Also, welcome to your new position, fairly new position.
Yes.
Good luck to you.
Yes, thank you so much. I'll be here to watch the meetings.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Lowry, I'm going to turn this over to you for your report.
Very good. I'll ask maybe Madison, do I need to pull the mic for you?
Yeah, you do. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I heard they're, by the way, commission members, I hear they're very sensitive. They'll pick up everything. I hear it. So, well, first of all, Chancellor, thank you for having us here. It struck me yesterday, the Chancellor's only been here a couple of weeks. For those of you who had a chance to interact with her, that should be surprising to you because she knows this campus, this organization, and the mission. the strategic pillars of Indiana University inside. She's also just a visionary, and I think Indiana is really fortunate to have snagged her for this important role. Yeah, and I would echo for comments, of course, thank you to the crowd team for putting this together. You know, my thoughts to the 7 team, but especially also to the Item Southeast team. You've just been such a gracious host, you know, even letting me hang out with students yesterday on Danny Bone and have some Domino's pizza. I mentioned this last night, Sharon. I just love being with all of you, and that was just the bomb. Being with them, it's just the best spending time. I love Jen's words: be seen, heard, and valued, right, in the room and at the table. I know we all know that, but we have to be doing that for our students. I'll pull a thread, Mr. Chairman, before I jump into mine here really quickly. You talked about community engagement, volunteerism, and the importance of that. When I look at what our plan is, when we look at what the 7 agenda items are, with the 7 items of the HOPE agenda, what we see as possible in Indiana, I'm absolutely convinced all of these things relate to the social, civic fabric of our state. And that fabric is a corner if we aren't focusing on possibilities and opportunities of education. So I see that. We also saw yesterday, those of us who were able to go on the tour and so forth, there's a sense of community on this campus. And I can assure you that I heard that from Josiah and Caleb. No, I didn't play volleyball in the sand, but yesterday we went and said hi to them. Right, and Irene, Jamie, and Jenna, Alex, and Dylan, they're remarkable young people. I said it in the social media post today. We don't feel good about the future, shame on us, because those are the individuals who are going to be leading our state in the way for all of us. So again, thank you, Chancellor, for the warm welcome and for the great job you're already doing. And it's just so crisply aligned what you're doing at this campus, Indiana University is doing, and what we're doing at the commission, focusing on the going rate, completions, graduate retention, and the 3 pillars of Indiana University around student focus, around research, and around really being part of the greater, broader Indiana community. Mr. Chairman, Commission members, we have shared a lot with you over the last several months. As I think you well know, we are at the implementation phase of a lot of just wonderful things that came our way, pardon me, in the last 8 or 9 months, especially so during the legislative session, and we'll hit on those here in just a second. But Chairman was, I think, the first on the commission with whom I talked with a few of you over dinner and so forth about what we needed to do to reorganize our staff. You will see, as I show some org charts and vacancies, we have been able to staff up in a few different ways. As you know, career and technical education came to the commission effective July 1st, which has just been splendid. We were also able to receive approval for some positions during the legislative session, and we've been filling some positions that were vacant and need to be filled. In this reorganization, I chose, and by the way, received just wholehearted support from the governor's office, state personnel department, and a lot of assistance to have a senior team of senior associate commissioners. And among those folks, I'll just tell you very quickly and briefly here, Josh Garrison is our new chief of staff. We didn't have a chief of staff. And I think, as you know, also gets much of the credit for how well things went in the legislature this year. He's a seasoned leader, well respected, not just in the office, not just with our colleagues from the institutions, but at the State House, especially so. Michelle Ashpratt, who's been with us all like a year and a day or something, Michelle, or a year and a week, who you come to know is now our Senior Associate Commissioner and Chief Program Officer. Read that, that's driving a lot of the implementation for a lot of these strategic initiatives we were to get through the legislature, and that you all can assist supportive of. Seth Hinshaw, Senior Associate Commissioner and Chief Financial Officer, CFO, just doing a terrific job. And of course, Ken Sauer continues in his position as Senior Associate Commissioner and Chief Academic Officer. I put this whole team, and especially so including that Senior Associate Commissioner executive team, up against any I ever worked with in any institution or in business. The remainder of the executive staff now reporting to different individuals on the previous slide. Folks, you know, we have one vacancy, of course, for gender, continuing to lead our business enterprise solutions. That's IT, if you think about it. Again, we try to bring more of a business feel to that. Allison Keir, who you know, not long ago was promoted to Assistant Commissioner of Marketing Communications. Madison Krowitz continuing as Assistant Commissioner for Strategic Partnerships, doing wonderful events like this. Stacey Townsley, Associate Commissioner leading Adult Strategy, and we do have a vacancy and we're seeking a top talent for the Associate Commissioner of Business Intelligence. I won't go all over this chart because we've got a couple of these here, but you'll have these. We'll send these to you to let you know sort of how the structure looks. Pardon me. This is the slide that will show those 4 senior associate commissioners and then the individuals reporting to each one of them. Again, we try to think very closely about the mission of our organization, but also thinking from a business standpoint. I'll use Seth's area as one of those. You know, we look to see what this as an industry does, oftentimes with the CFO goal, and you'll find business intelligence in there. So, right, the research arm of it, the data analytics and so forth. And then with gender being, right, that classical kind of IT area, and then of course control and finance, other things that of course anyone would expect the part of the CEOs or CFOs portfolio. And pardon me, then you can see, you know, with the others, we think there's quite a bit of logic there. Ken's team really has not changed, but then Michelle, especially focusing on those things, continue to focus on those things that principally are related to K-12, but then some of our other programming areas, including CTE. And I think we mentioned that the July meeting reporting to her. And so we're really pleased. Admittedly, I can tell you, it's been beneficial to me. That shouldn't be a concern of you, but it's been beneficial to me for them to send me to the things I need to do. For example, like the last 2 days, spending a lot of time other places like Foster Career Center and here at Bayou Southeast and Brown County High School with the media and others. I'll talk about briefly that in a moment. You can see the breakout of more details we later down here. Again, I won't go into all of this. As I mentioned, you'll see a place here and there. You'll see, for example, Director of Career Scholarship accounts, vacancy there. That is part of what came with House rolled out 1002. We own that implementation side of career scholarship accounts, along with the Department of Education and the State Treasurer's Office. So you'll see a few of those. Again, as I mentioned, Ken's structure really didn't change. Michelle Ashcraft's quite a bit there. All of these folks will tell you they also have just terrific folks reporting to them and really leading within their respective organizations. Financial aid, again, making a real important shift here into her portfolio. Frankly, if you didn't know her own background in this regard, with her decade at the university, just was lending splendidly to that. Sets, as I mentioned, you'll see a couple of different vacancies in that. As I get ready to go to the next section, to the next section, I'll mention a couple of things, and certainly if you want to ask questions and dig into it, just say so, please. But we started talking with all of you probably last summer about having a very intentional talent strategy for our commission, for the commission. Counting the additional positions that were added during the legislative session, filling a couple that were there and hadn't been filled, CTE coming to the commission. I think we're pushing 70 people total. We're going to set our HR 65. Yeah, 65 to 70. I'll mention in a moment here too that we're also receiving some support from philanthropy from a capacity standpoint to help deliver on those wonderful things that happen in the legislature. But we've been really intentional, and without going really deeply into it, we have said, especially as a senior team, all we want are the best and most talented people to join us. And our entire senior team, the associate commissioners and senior associate commissioners know we are the recruiting staff. Yes, we work with the state personnel department, but we are the recruiting staff. We know that on average, there are 8 or 10 applicants for a state open position. hours have been ranging from 60 to 120. And we typically, for those of you that should joining us, be at the first 120 because we're typically cutting it off at 120 when we receive applicants. And we are going after people. And we're saying, would you like to be in the room and at the table and join us in this mission? And I say that because, we're looking for folks who have those talents that you would see come through on their resume, but also those talents to work collaboratively as a team, to push each other, and also something that's, it's a little hard to define, but you know it when you see it. It's something special. And I'll use two of some of our very newest people here today. We have some other new folks with us today from the commission team, but I'm going to use these two as an example because something really struck me the other day during a conversation with two of them and another individual. We were talking about some big topics and so forth. And these two individuals, Aaron Olson, Aaron might stand in front of them, is new to our business intelligence team and just doing smashing work on record at the moment. And Emily Price. Emily, are you? And Emily's over there. It's a little hard to see because of the lights, Emily. They're both only weeks with us now. And during this meeting, we were talking about some things, and I just knew there were things that probably needed to get done. And what struck me was, first of all, no one said, that's not my job. No one said, would you like me to do that? Instead, both of those individuals said, oh, on that, I'm going to do this. Could I get back to you in a couple of days on this? And Emily and Aaron both did that. And I say that because that's kind of nuanced. And you typically don't see that in a standard 30 or 45-minute interview. Our interviews are grueling. You did another 2 hours, 3 people with 1 candidate. We each have what we'll talk about, standardized every time. And by the way, they spoke to tell you too, before they come to our organization, if I've not been in the interview process, every person talks with me for a half hour before they come. There are the expectations. I want to know why they're joining us. I want to know how they tick. And so I'm embarrassed Aaron and Emily a little bit today, but the last couple of days have been a road show that I'll talk about. And Emily, along with Madison, who, by the way, seems like a better computer. Madison came in like 9 months. Wow. Put that together, and it didn't go well. It went exceptionally well because all the details, frankly, that I didn't have to think about were already taken care of. And Aaron, I'll give you this example. We, as you know, we've been putting together, utilizing attainment, college going rate, how completion is low, graduate retention, all that. Then I was translating it into economic outcomes. What does this look like by unemployment rates, labor participation, wage percent, life expectancy, and all of those things? And I kind of wanted all of that in different formats for a long while. And I think maybe the second week on the job, I drug Aaron into the meetings last month, the meeting United Way, talking about folks who live on the edge. They don't live in what we all think is direct poverty, but they're on the edge. They're trying and struggling to get into middle income, the middle class. And the data was just compelling. Afterward, I mentioned, hey, Aaron, you started to familiarize yourself. We're trying to take our policies forward with this kind of data. I just been dying to see, could we get that at the legislative level? So think for every House and Senate member in the state that we have. And that's probably a really good question. I think I'll go dig into that. That was a Wednesday afternoon. On Friday morning, he sent me this amazing presentation, interactive, every legislative district. We'll get that off to you. Nancy and I talked about it the other night. We'll get that off to you. I use that as an example because it wasn't something I even asked for. I was curious about this, trying to figure out how to get this. And there we go. We think all of that is there. We have it structured well. Are we finding with folks who are hungry to be on the team, just wanting to live this mission with us? And so, Emily and Aaron, thanks for allowing me to embarrass you, but they're doing great work. Aaron, now I'm 6 weeks into it. is working with us to define those goals within the 7 Hope Agenda items, right? We said we will be back and say, hey, here's where we are today. And we said top 10, 2030. Aaron is helping us do that. Frankly, we're down like one area where, we're trying to scrub it yet, and we want to make sure that others know. We'll have that for you officially in November, but we'll be sending it to you much earlier than that. And much credit to that whole BI team. Aaron, you're getting the attention because you're the new person, right? But that BI team, this intelligence team who's doing that work. I'll go really quickly through these next ones. This is just a reminder from those Hope Agenda goals to talk about what they are. To be a top 10, 2030 in these areas, obviously we talked about the going rate of youth. You know where we are, 53% college going rate, been climbing to start flattening out. And we think, including the words from the chancellor this morning, we're going to start seeing improvement in that. But even more so, things that we have going on that are in place. The increase in rank and band grants, Indiana College Corps, which I know Michelle is going to talk about later, I think. Faster completions, workforce ready grants, and other things in that regard. Post-secondary attainments for adults, specifically so for veterans, individuals with disabilities and justice involved. I know Commissioner Sturman will have her task force that she and Stacy have been leading on veterans to talk later. Utilization of credit prior learning. We are pushing on this. I will tell you this. We estimate that only 8 states, I'm going to go ahead and mention the data point here, that 8 states truly have a legitimate, robust method of utilizing like a library, if you will, for credit prior learning. We will be in first 10. Our team has assured that we will be. Of course, completions, right, needs to be going well. I didn't share the data point yesterday. I was talking about top 10, where we land and so forth. We've seen great improvements in completion. We've got to keep the gas pedal down on that and continue because it isn't making up for some of the other areas where the pipeline has been leaking. But as of now, we are the 13th best state out of 50 in completion rates among our institutions. So, and that's one of those that I referenced last night. We're going to start abandoning humility where appropriate. Retaining our talent, so much going on in that space. I'd be remiss, Becca, if I didn't reference to show to everyone a sticker staying in Indiana. This goes along with the strategy of the Indiana Destination Development Corporation and Governor. Thank you, Becca. I know Ball State's really helping to push that too. And measurable, truly measurable ways in which to look at economic and social mobility and prosperity. That's one of those we're really down to the point of scrubbing and making sure we've got right. And then the last one, we talk about the very best place to start a business based on human capital, because again, we have so many wonderful things, whether we're top or whether first or fifth or something like that, in regulatory environment, infrastructure, tax structure, business friendliness, and so forth. But the human capital side of that's the other one that we're really struggling. I'm going to skip through these other few slides because all they do is go into those in greater detail. For the sake of time, Mr. Chairman, you can see, you just dig into it. Leaders on the team are going to be talking about this in depth, and I don't want to steal their headlines. The next to last thing I'll talk about, and then last slide, Mr. Chairman, before my very last quick comments, that our team, as I mentioned, has really been helping me think about getting out. And I think we should credit our partners to a great deal for things that have gone well for higher ed and the commission in the last year. Our partners in business and philanthropy and nonprofits, government and education at Pentagon. And, part of what Bacon is saying to me is that, Lowry, you got to get out and talk more about it. You got to sit down with students, whether it's at the high school level, whether it's at the collegiate level, spend more time with media, lifting up the challenges that we're trying to address. Again, we're not admiring problems, we're going to go address them. What's going well, what's not, what we're trying to do, and then listening to others and saying, what should we be doing? You can see what those are. And I can tell you, the last 2 days have just been a delight. Spending time in Brown County, talking with students, learning about what they're doing at the Eagle manufacturing site there, what they're doing in bioscience. By the way, seeing this incredible advanced manufacturing business, if you will, Eagle manufacturing, that the legislators funded because they had a home there and they just talked about philanthropy. Stopped by one day and said, so what could we do to support what you're doing? It's truly remarkable. Again, seeing that collision between education, business and philanthropy happening right there. Yesterday at the Foster Career Center, if you've not been, and Mr. Chairman, at some point, maybe we could fit in a tour when we visit Southern Indiana. It is the largest career center in the state. It is a college attainment over there. The number of employers they have engaged and embedded in that work, it's world class. And of course, spending time yesterday here on campus, the best was with those 7 students, nice to from Jenna, and to be present in that regard, being with media, had a lovely conversation with folks from the newspaper here yesterday morning, and they let us know when the story comes out, and the same thing in Brown County. And they're also very interested in what we're doing, and quite frankly, lifting up and supporting the role of education in our state, K-12, higher ed, and how that fits together. I want to make just a couple of quick closing remarks. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to refer to this if I don't want to state it wrongly. One is to reference again back to the Pentagon. This one's going to be about philanthropy. As you know, we asked leading philanthropic organizations in the state to join us in this work. And sometimes they have to come very quietly because they don't create conflicts and so forth. I was sharing with the chairman last night that in the last 2 to 3 months, we've been approached by several of those entities and asked to make proposals, and specifically around how they might support the work that we've got going on. I can't talk about all of that publicly yet because we're just, we've had this invitation kind of conversation. One, I can share with you that you may or may not have read about. As I mentioned a couple of days ago, I'll share with all of you, and Lisa announced the commission received a 3-year, $363,000 College Matters grant from the Richard M. Fairfax Foundation. College Matters is a multi-year initiative of the foundation aimed at increasing Marion counties, because that is their focus, the Fairfax Foundation college going rate, especially among students from low-income households. It's a true embodiment of, these are their words, of the HOPE agenda. And you can read more about it here. Grant funding will be used to support convenience of school counselors, educators, community-based organizations in Marion County. Convenience will train attendees on FAFSA filing best practices, 20% for scholarship support, and opportunities to program college applications and FAFSA filings through the pre-admission bureaucrat to college. Okay, Michelle's going to talk more about that. I shared that with you as hot for us, Fairfax Foundation, and approached us and said, we have this idea, we'd like to support the work that's going on. And you should know of their generosity. We expect to share more good news like that with you pretty soon. I'm going to find out, Mr. Chairman, where you started, and I'll stop taking the question. In your comments, especially around the community and how we have an impact in the community and what that means. And he doesn't know I'm going to mention this, but someone in this room embodies what that means to incorporate that into their professional life, into their volunteer life for a long time, and to lift up individuals many times who are less fortunate than I would dare say folks in this room. And on that rare occasion, individuals like that are recognized. And one of your fellow commission members was recently, my only advice I can be Whitcomb and many other people as he and a handful of others were celebrating this Indiana's Living Legends. And that is your friend, his colleague, the leader of the Center for Leadership Development, Dennis Bland. And Mr. Chairman, I think it's worthy, first of all of you knowing that, us expressing my gratitude for him, because if I thought of your words and what we're all trying to really get done here, it does relate to strength of the community, strength of our social and civic fabric, which all underpin how successful this state and individuals are going to be. Sorry, I didn't give you a heads up, but, and I wouldn't, because you probably would have allowed me to do that. But, Mr. Chairman, this concludes my remarks. I'm certainly glad to answer questions and so forth.
We give Dennis, all right.
I have a question. Am I coming through?
Yeah, go ahead.
That was a great presentation, and congratulations to your reorganization and to the new responsibilities that your leaders are taking on. And I've always been extraordinarily impressed with the quality of the staff of the commission. I mean, it's extraordinary. This is, probably shouldn't say it, but I'll say it, for a government agency, it's truly extraordinary. We very much appreciate the commitment that is made. And that's why our people get stolen all the time by other people and the universities. But I know we've taken on a number of new responsibilities because the legislature has so much confidence in Chris and his team. And it occurred to me, and this may be something you're planning to do. Obviously, we want to make sure, we as the board, so to speak, want to make sure that the execution is done extremely well, and that maybe it makes sense. And I don't know if this I'm just proposing, and for you to once a year or something report to us about all these new tasks and maybe some metrics and showing that we're doing a great job of execution and that we are a user-friendly organization. So when a kid wants to be a 21st century scholar, that it's easy to do that. It's not hard. There's no waiting list. There's no, that we answer the phone or whatever we do, or respond to the email or the inquiry or whatever. Would that make sense, Chris?
Al, it not only makes sense for once a year, I think I can speak for the senior team. We're just going to be doing that on a regular basis. I don't want to interrupt you. I'll add a little bit more to it. We couldn't. Oh, thank you. We couldn't agree more. We did an update, or 3 or 4 of us did, maybe 2 months ago now, the governor's office. Governor's office asked agency to do an annual update, and I let one of them say what occurred, but we were really pleased. And to your point, Al, I was just all about implementation. Who was doing what our timelines look like, what we were going to be measuring, what we started to measure and so forth. And we just think that's the way it should be. Again, we would do that in this business. We should do that in this organization and other places. So yeah, count on it. It'll be a minimum of once a year. And we're going to start walking into that bit today with some of the presentations you're going to see. I'm looking over at Michelle, especially because of some of those big initiatives that we've been talking about. Yes, short answer to your question, absolutely.
So one other quick question. You've got an open position for commissioner or associate commissioner of business intelligence. What is that?
Yeah, so that really is our research and insights leadership role. So as we think about understanding the dynamics and the research that goes into our college going rate, our completion rates, and what we're doing with graduate retention, where we're seeing the challenges, looking at, things like Aaron was digging into recently. How do we take information like that? One, share it with our different partners and stakeholders, for example, legislative leaders. And then, because I do think this is too oftentimes missed with some research, draw out insights, open them up for debate, say, so what does this mean? Here's the graphic, what does it mean? And so, yeah, it's sort of the classic research side of the house, but trying to turn it, even with the term business intelligence out, into something that we say, look, if there's something really significant here, let's make it actionable. Right, when we're seeing these kind of trends, and not just the data point. I said, when I talk about this all the time, we always talk about plan, actual, and prior year. Anything we can get our hands on. And then taking that and saying, okay, so we see that, what's happening, why is it? And if it's truly a challenge, maybe it's just a blip, are we going to start executing on it rather than waiting maybe 3 to 5 years or something like that? So hopefully that makes sense.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for your questions, Alex. Anyone else have questions or comments for Commissioner? Okay. Thanks, Commissioner Lowry, and congratulations again on this recognition. Now we'll turn to the minutes. Your agenda book contains minutes from our last meeting for your approval. May I have a motion?
Go move.
Second. In a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes. We will start by hearing the Academic Affairs and Quality Committee report from Dennis Land. Dennis.
Morning, everybody. Morning. I appreciate it. It's an honor to serve as the chair of the Academic Affairs and Quality Committee. So, Mr. Chair, thank you very much. Chris, thank you. I also like to recognize other members of the committee. Dr. Whitcomb, thank you for joining us, sir. Welcome. Thank you for joining the committee. Dan Peterson, and then also Mr. Tom Saunders. So thank you for the opportunity to serve. In terms of an update, the Academic Affairs and Quality Committee met on August 28th and discussed 2 programs that we put forward for approval for this commission. One program is the Bachelor of Science in Computer Science to be offered through distance education by IU Northwest in collaboration with IUPUI and IU Kokomo, IU Southeast, and their Southgate campus. The second degree program is the Master of Science in Education in Qualitative and Quantitative Research Methodology to be offered by IU Bloomington. The committee recommended that both programs be placed on today's agenda for expedited action. And then the second item has to do with the agreement between IU and Purdue regarding IUPUI. So the committee met on July 24th to review how the programs currently offered by IU and Purdue and IUPUI will be divided between Indiana University, Indianapolis, and Purdue University, Indianapolis, which will be effective on July 1 of 2024. So the Academic Affairs and Quality Committee reviewed the recommended staff action on the alignment of these programs so that the 2 universities could move forward by an August 15 deadline for those materials that have to be submitted to the Higher Learning Commission. Then Dr. Ken Sauer can do this much better justice than I can, so I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Sauer to explain more about the alignment between IU and Purdue, what that agreement entails. Dr. Sauer.
Thank you, Commissioner Member Bland. So we've been tracking for decades which program, which university offered which program. So at IUPUI, so there was no discovery needed there. And of course, all of the IU programs would be offered, continue to be offered by Indiana University, Indianapolis, when the alignment becomes effective July 1st of next year. So the real work had to do with the 88 existing Purdue programs that were offered at IUPUI. We had very extensive conversations with both universities on this, and with the net result that of those 88 programs, 29, 1/3 of the programs that were offered by Purdue would be sort of transferred to or associated with Purdue University, Indianapolis, again, when that becomes effective July 1st. 42 are almost half. And by the way, the Purdue programs are largely engineering and technology, which makes sense. The 42, or almost half of those Purdue programs, would now be transferred to Indiana University. So they would, again, effective July 1st, Indiana University, Indianapolis would offer these programs. And these are largely programs in sciences, mathematics, and some technology programs. There were only 4 programs that would be offered by both institutions because they're in very high demand areas. And actually, the 2 universities have collaborated on these programs at IUPUI anyway, so it's a very easy separation. There were 13 Purdue programs which will be eliminated. These were more certificate programs, but they were a few degree programs, and Purdue felt that these were probably programs that would be eliminated and that they didn't wish to sort of transfer or have associated with Purdue University, Indianapolis. And in these instances, Indiana University felt no need to continue them under the IU label. So that, in summary, is what the AAQ committee discussed in July. Again, as Chairman Bland has indicated, these are things that had to be done in order for Indiana University in particular to move ahead with its application to associate it with IUPUI becoming IU Indianapolis. So in any case, as part of that application, the university had to say that the commission has taken action on that. That's what that July committee meeting is all about. And these now have been communicated to Indiana University and the Higher Learning Commission.
Thank you, Dr. Stout. And I just want to say before I turn back over to the chair, appreciate Dr. Berger for his leadership on this committee. So back over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis. Thanks, Dr. Sauer. At the July commission meeting hosted by Ivy Tech Community College in Columbus, you heard an update on the MGA learning and employment records and the digital wallet from Dr. Sauer and Julian Schulten. Because the commission expressed strong interest in this initiative, it seems appropriate for the commission to provide its support through a formal resolution. I will now ask our virtual commission member, Al Hubbard, to read the resolution and offer a motion to approve.
Hey, thank you. My wife would like to know I can be virtual. I was so enthusiastic about the description of the digital credential and digital wallet, and followed up with a call to Chris and his team. So and Ken. So I'm very delighted to present this resolution and a motion to support it. So I'll read the resolution. The resolution on learning and employment records, digital credentials, and digital wallets as ways to promote skills-based hiring. Whereas Indiana has built and is continuing to refine a digital credentialing infrastructure through statewide and statutory initiatives such as the Indiana e-transcript program, which embraces both high school and college transcripts. And whereas Indiana embraces transparency about the knowledge, skills, and abilities that those who complete certificate and degree programs are expected to master. and has made this information available through the Indiana Credential Registry. And whereas Indiana colleges and universities, most notably Ivy Tech Community College, have already issued many tens of thousands of digital credentials, and whereas Indiana already has a working prototype of a digital wallet in the form of the Indiana Achievement Wallet, and whereas Governor Holcomb co-chaired the working group that published the 2019 white paper on interoperable learning records as part of the governor's membership on the Federal American Workforce Policy Advisory Board, and whereas the Commission for Higher Education's 2020 strategic plan, Reaching Higher in a State of Change, called for the development of a digital, easily shareable, student-owned record like a passport that collects information about the skills and knowledge learners earn over the course of their education and careers. And whereas Indiana has demonstrated its commitment to developing learning and employment records through successfully applying for and receiving in 2022 and 2023 a grant on this topic from the National Governors Association, whereas the Commission for Higher Education is working with employers, the Indiana Chamber of Commerce, and the Society of Human Resource Management's Indiana chapter to ensure that digital credentials and digital wallets are designed to facilitate skills-based hiring practices. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Commission for Higher Education should submit a proposal for a Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors LER demonstration grant and should work with sister state agencies, the business community, education providers at all levels, community groups, and thought leaders to develop a strategic plan for promoting, implementing, and sustaining a statewide infrastructure of learning and employment records, digital credentials, and digital wallets to promote skills-based hiring. I would like to move that the commission endorse this resolution.
Okay. Motion and a second. Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? All right, thank you, Al.
And thank you to the commission.
Okay. The next thing is academic degree programs for expedited action. I believe you have 2 academic degree programs for expedited action listed in your agenda book beginning on page 13. The first program is the Bachelor of Science in Computer Science to be offered by Indiana University Northwest in collaboration with Indiana University, Purdue University, Indianapolis, Indiana University, Kokomo, Indiana University Southeast, and Indiana University South Bend. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? All right, motion is approved. The second program, Mr. Chairman? Yes.
If I may abstain on this item, I have a connection to this program, I'd like to step back.
Thank you, Dr. Lockman. The second program is the Master of Science in Education and Qualitative and Quantitative Research Methodology to be offered by Indiana University Bloomington. May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? All right, motion passes. Next, we'll welcome Dr. Stacy Townsley to present an update on adult strategy and project overview, followed by a presentation on the Veterans Task Force recommendations by the Veterans Task Force Working Group.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Right. We do have some logistics to manage here, Madison. Before we get started, I want to make sure that we have folks online who will be presenting as well. And for those who will be presenting in person for the Veterans Task Force, if you could just join us up here and we'll get started. That way we can do quickly. Okay. Well, I'll get started today with a recap on the why for the focus for adult strategy. We have 2 million adults here in Indiana without a credential, and about 40% of them have some college but no degree. These numbers indicate both a challenge and an opportunity to consider how we can help support adults to return or to start college. And as Commissioner Lowry outlined in his HOPE agenda, of course, driving a lot of this work are the 2 key goals of helping us be the top 10 state in post-secondary attainment for specific populations, including veterans, individuals with disabilities, and those with, who are justice involved, as well as utilization of credit for prior learning, really to honor the work and the experience and the education already achieved by adults. And as I've stated before, adult strategy by its very nature is not as structured as that of K-12, but we know that there are common challenges to address across the educational system if we are going to see a greater number of adults return and complete a credential. And barrier removal is, of course, key to the strategy that we have. This slide depicts the learner journey and highlights some of the common barriers and support opportunities for this population, and of course, for all students. But you'll note here, for example, the supporting principles are very intentional and high touch, including recognition of credit for prior learning, along with adaptivity, life and career planning, strategic partnerships, which is at the core of our work here at the Commission. And back in January, I shared this graph depicting the initial buckets of work that we're pursuing with this new focus on adult strategy. Fundamental infrastructure, which includes both funding and credit for prior learning, our special population focus, and this larger scale outreach and engagement. Now, all of these things are not linear per se, but my team, Jose, Arlen, as of 3 days ago, Steve, and of course, other CHE colleagues have been busy over the last few months, really laying the groundwork and taking action in all of the areas listed here on the slides. Importantly, as we consider how to address barrier removal for adults and really all students, the work boils down to two things: supporting programs and resources that really help individuals navigate a system that does not necessarily work for them. It wasn't necessarily designed for them. And then secondly, we have to think about the longer term systems design, redesigning those relationships and processes that really shape the way we work together across the ecosystem, and really helping those individuals navigate from point A, B, C, and beyond, and really just removing those barriers altogether. So today, I'm going to briefly highlight two areas of the work that we're doing. One is credit for prior learning, followed by a report from members of our Veterans Education Pathways Task Force on their key recommendations for action. So you'll recall that credit for prior learning, or CPL, is among those elements supporting barrier removal for adult learners. CPL is not a new concept, but it is an important tool that is typically not optimized across our institutions and systems. A landmark national study done in 2020, published by the Council of Adult and Experiential Learning, CALE, and the Western Interstate Commission for Higher Education, demonstrated the powerful positive impact that CPL has on student outcomes. And so listed on this slide are a few of those that were highlighted in this report. CPL will increase credential completion rates. The national study found that 17% increase in completion rates with those who received CPL versus those who did not. It will save adult learners time and money. They listed a range of $1,500 to over $10,000. And it will improve retention in those institutions that offer CPL. The study found that 17.6 additional credits were earned by students with CPL compared to those who were not. And importantly, these strong CPL outcomes are true regardless of race, ethnicity, and income level. So it's a game changer. The benefits of CPL are not limited to learners and higher education institutions. This graph outlines the benefits of a more robust and connected CPL ecosystem for all stakeholders, including our industry and community partners. Transparent, consistent CPL opportunities support educational attainment, talent attraction and retention, and optimization of workforce development funding and other resources. So it's a no-brainer, right? So in the spirit of fostering a more robust and connected CPL ecosystem, CHE earlier this summer launched a statewide CPL initiative with our consulting partner TPMA. We stood up 3 task force groups focused on statewide CPL policy guidance, data collection, and a CPL library or clearinghouse concept. And across these 3 task force groups, we have approximately 75 participants from higher education, workforce development, and other community and government agency partners. And our goal is to share these results and recommendations of this work at the November commission meeting. So more to come on that. So for the second half of our time today, I'm delighted to share the work of our Veterans Education Pathways Task Force. Task Force members gave a preview of the recommendations at the August Student Success and Completion Committee meeting. A one-page summary is in your agenda book, followed by the full recommendations report. And so as we think about this task force, and I've reported this before, it is a targeted initiative for this year. The task force met monthly, February through July. Our objective ultimately is to increase by 5,000 the number of veterans and military affiliated individuals pursuing an undergraduate credential at an Indiana post-secondary institution by 2025-2026. Ambitious. There are 3 strategies that the task force focused on, which ultimately became the focus for 3 working groups. Those strategies are credit for prior learning. Again, how do we increase the utilization of academic credit for prior learning for military training? Communication and navigation. How do we improve the transition points among various stakeholders? How do we create that more robust ecosystem that we talk about? And then lastly, around student supports, how are we enhancing outreach and awareness and supports? And part of this came right alongside the legislation that was passed at this General Assembly, the Purple Star Institution designation, which is really ultimately about creating a framework of excellence as we think about supporting veterans and military students. Moving from and all of this really is designed to help Indiana move from what we might consider being military and veteran friendly to being military and veteran ready and engaged. A lot of good work is already happening in the state, but it generally is a little bit disconnected and it's not widely known. It's been a very huge learning curve for me, even in higher education, to understand all of the opportunities. And of course, all of this work is interconnected with everything that we're doing in adult strategy, including the direct tie-in to the credit for prior learning initiatives underway. I'd be remiss if I didn't highlight the fantastic group of folks who've been at the head of this work. And it was chaired by our commission member, Eric Suderman, so thank you. She really pushed us to get what we could get accomplished in 6 months. So again, thank you. We had representatives listed here, about 25 active participants who really just brought their expertise and their enthusiasm and insights to this work. They represent public and private higher education institutions, government agencies, community organizations, folks like those in the Indiana National Guard and the Army Reserve. I mean, we had a great representation of folks. And not listed on the slide, but noted in the full report are the names of commission staff who've also supported this work. So again, thank you all. And I'm hopeful that as we get going, prior to a readout from these working groups, that we will hear from one of our students, veterans, who shared his experience as a veteran on campus in the last Student Success and Completion Committee meeting. We've asked him to briefly speak again on his experiences prior to having members of the task force present their recommendations. We think you'll see a connection. And so I'd like to introduce Philip Zobel, if you're on. You see him? He may not be on. Okay. Well, unfortunately. But in that one-page report that you have in your agenda, there is a summary of what he shared with the committee, and it was remarkable. But I will say that his experiences were greatly enhanced by having strong Student Success Center dedicated to supporting veterans on his campus. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to our task force representatives to present on their respective working groups. And I'll let them introduce themselves as they come up. So.
Thank you, Dr. Townsley. My name is Jason Jarrett. I am the Assistant Director of Financial Aid for Veterans Affairs at Ball State University. I am one of the co-leads of the Credit for Prior Learning Working Group as part of the task force that we've been charged with here today. First, I want to say thank you to Commissioner Lowry, Chairman Fisher, for their support from the commission, and especially thank you to Erica Studerman and to Dr. Stacy Townsley for their support and their vision of our task force as we've been making these recommendations, and we've been working together for the last 7 months. Thank you to the entire commission. I think we've been doing very valuable work. And today I'm going to tell you a little bit about the task force, the working group I was leading, the Credit for Prior Learning Group, and the recommendations that we have here today. Each year, thousands of officers leave the military, they transition back to civilian life, and they return home to Indiana to start the next phase of their lives. And for many of those veterans, the next phase includes pursuing higher education. And whatever the reason it is they want to pursue higher education, whether it's to secure a better life for them and their families, whether it's to better serve their community and their country, we see that these veterans have accumulated a wide body of knowledge and extensive experience while in the military, which one thing I learned as working on this group was the United States military is the largest provider of education in the United States. So we have thousands of veterans returning to Indiana with knowledge, with skills that they want to use to enhance their lives, to enhance their communities. But we have found that applying these experiences and applying this education to higher education here in Indiana can be a bit confusing. It can be an opaque and kind of broken process. There's no one standardized way of saying, I was in this branch of service, this was my occupation, what can I get at IUPUI, at Ball State, at any of these institutions of higher learning? And as Commissioner Lowry alluded to earlier, it's time for this to change. It's time for Indiana to introduce a system like other states, like Texas, Ohio, and Kansas, systems where students can say, I want to know what will I get? Where will I stand when I start my education at one of these institutions of higher learning? And we think that it's time for us to create a system where our working group has come up with, we want something new. The other working groups are enhancing and improving our existing procedures. We want to create something new. So what we're looking at is creating a resource similar to our transfer in resources, our prior learning to show where a student stands in their degree once they get started with their military credits. We believe this is key, and this is extremely important because students who come in with a clear knowledge and a clear path, they're more likely to enroll. They're more likely to stay, to persist, to graduate. and to leave their universities and their colleges with a degree that can create meaningful pathways to meaningful careers. This is an untapped resource that the state of Indiana needs to get in on. This is something that can be enhancing our communities and our colleges and our state as a whole. Now, we set up, or we conceptualized this as a kind of a old Roman structure. At the top, we got the credit for prior learning solution that's supported by 3 pillars. And ASID recommendations for credit for prior learning through joint services transcripts through the Community College of the Air Force. Standardizing these credits across Indiana's institutions and having policies at the institutional level that will enable these faculty to review and for faculty to see what are these credits, how do they work for our degree programs. And they set upon a foundation of a website, a resource that students can go to. They can see this is what I have, this is what I get. And then training at the institutional level so faculty remain engaged with these outcomes and with these learners. Now, I'm not the expert on some of these things. This is where I'm going to call in my colleague, Allegra Fowler, who's joining us virtually from Purdue Global. Purdue Global has taken a lead on these types of activities, and they are the experts, the subject matter experts. So Allegra, if you're there, would you like to start talking about some of the things that we've been working on with these pillars and these foundations?
Yes, thank you so much, Jason. It's so nice to see everyone today and really appreciate the opportunity to speak about the value that our military learners bring to the Indiana higher education community. As we said, we think there's work to be done at individual institutions. So the first component of our recommendations that we're reading out include actions that we think can be taken at each individual institution in order to improve the opportunities for military credit for prior learning. The first pillar that we have suggested revolves around the recommendations made by the American Council on Education. This serves essentially as the backbone of credit opportunities. And each institution is going to take their own path towards the acceptance of those recommendations. But we really think that following a state guidance or a state series of suggestions about how those credits can be absorbed, we think will really improve the opportunity that institutions have and really level the playing field across the different institutions. The second pillar that we have suggested is standardized and transparent credit. And I want to emphasize that when we suggest standardized here, it is not that each institution should follow kind of a policy or a standard that is given to them, but simply that each institution should have a standardized process so that individual learners have a predictable and transparent experience, and they will know upfront the credits that they'll be eligible for. And the third institutional pillar is enabling policies. In our discussions in the task force, we found that different institutions had policies that either supported or restricted the ability to make use of these credits from military training. And we think that some policy recommendations and adjustments at the institutional level can really alleviate some of those concerns and create better clarity for staff and administrators about what's possible related to the credit for prior learning. So there's institutional work to be done, and that will need to be taken up by institutional leaders and the different schools. But on the next topic, we think that there's a bit of work that can be done across the state in order to support this work. So the one that Jason mentioned that I think is the most significant is the second here, the military CPL website. Many states have a centralized clearinghouse where military learners can navigate and learn the opportunities directly that they have for credit for prior learning. And we think that pursuing such a website, leaning on those institutional pillars of standardization and transparency, we could pull that data on a standard convention into a user-facing website that would really demystify the process of receiving credit, allow students to make informed decisions about their next steps in the academic space, and also help institutions kind of gain best practices from one another and identify valuable areas where maybe additional credit opportunities might benefit institutions. We think this can create a virtuous cycle. Well, everyone will be racing to the top of wanting to offer more good, valuable credit opportunities to these military learners. And the first foundation here is simply awareness and training. I think, the topic of this credit for prior learning, as Stacy has identified, It has a lot of value, but it needs champions. And so we would like to engage in a statewide training initiative to ensure that we're getting champions across the state and folks to support and advocate for this work. And I think that's the end of ours, and we'll pass it over to the communication and navigation group.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you.
So I wanted to ask if our league is available online. Okay. So I will be presenting on behalf of this working group their recommendations around communication and navigation. Again, how are we connecting and leveraging the existing resources to make it that much more clear for individuals who are seeking that next step. And so this working group really was, again, charged with identifying opportunities to improve education-related communication processes and resources. And again, these are spelled out in the full report, but they highlight developing a communication toolkit for multi-agency use. They highlighted a number of existing resources that we can use to help point to and start in terms of action. And so they highlight resources and benefits that are already available, for example, the Minutemen Scholarship, and then the transitioning guard and reserve process. They also highlighted the importance of working with the organization Invest to really build on their, what I think is a good start with their website that has pages for all 92 counties. So really adding and developing to those sites resources that are linked to not only CHE, IDEA, and others. They also highlight some other possibilities for linking resources, including the Jobs for Veterans State grants. And they had the idea of developing the toolkit QR codes. Again, as we're moving into this era of quick access to information, using that technology to our benefit. We highlighted the Invest's work, and they also had a very specific recommendation for the Department of Veterans Affairs to have an AI chatbot that could be created to engage with veterans, asking them what resources they need and pointing them to relevant information. Again, as we think about sustainability and that high-touch approach, technology is a part of that effort. They also highlighted opportunities to really connect in with a network of county veteran service officers or CVSOs. And training would be critical. So that would be another line of action that we could pursue. And then parallel, I don't want to get ahead of the other group, but parallel to the Purple Star institution framework that the student support work group is going to touch upon, the communications and navigation group developed recommendations for a Purple Star designation for employers. And on this last slide here, they highlight ways that we could be recognizing employers. Read through it quickly. Awards and certifications for company website and marketing materials, public announcements and press releases to highlight Purple Star employers, collaborative campaigns and partnerships among veteran service organizations, government agencies, community leaders, like to add higher education, online platforms and directories, collaborate with industry-specific associations, and preferential treatment for Purple Star companies. So that was a unique idea that they came up with in parallel to some of the work that's already happening. And yes, would you like to speak, Erica? Thank you.
I'd like to point out that we mentioned Invest an awful lot, and IDEA, Indiana Department of Veterans Affairs, working together a lot, and the CVSOs, County Veteran Service Officers. I was the commissioner for the IDEA before I came here. And the Invest run by Blaine Zimmerman and IDEA, which is the chair, the president or CEO is Dennis Weinberg. They're in the same building at 777 Reagan Street. So that connection has already been made. It will not be hard to do. And the CPSOs who will get this spread out across the whole state, because we don't have 92 CPSOs, but we have a couple of counties where they share a county veteran service officer. They're the ones who help people figure out what the best school to go to is, the tuition assistance, if they need medical care, if they're homeless, they're the front line. And we meet with them regularly to make sure that they're up to date on all the latest stuff. So we have ample opportunity to get the word out. Because without communication and navigation, if there's a lot of services out there and no one knows about it, they're not going to be used. So this is a real key section, a working group. And Art Lee, who is with, let's see, he was with the Indiana Army Reserve. He has just retired. So I believe that has a lot to do. He saw it through to the end and then he said, I'm retired. And I really I've been working at doing retirement for 12 years. I still don't have it figured out. So he broke that code and I've got to give him credit for that. So thank you for that.
Thank you for that additional information. I'm going to now transition it over to Lori. I'll have you introduce yourself to speak to the last round of student supports.
I'm Lori Spray, the Director of Veteran Military Benefits at Ivy Tech. I echo Jason's accolades and appreciation for the Commission for asking us to be part of this. This is something that has been something near and dear to our hearts for many years, and have someone that has asked for our recommendations and is very important. So for student supports, we were charged with identifying opportunities to support and improve veteran services on campus, as well as develop guidelines and criteria for purple star designations for institutions of higher learning. We started wanting to learn what other institutions were doing in Indiana. So we mirrored a survey, 1920 military-friendly survey questionnaire, sent it out to all institutions in Indiana, and 22 institutions responded. Our first query was regarding active duty policy. We have a lot of students, especially in the Guard, who are constantly leaving because of being called to active duty. So we wanted to see who already had this. But our recommendation is that institutions should have this active duty policy for absence longer than 15 days. As we all know, missing 15 days or more of college can really put you behind. So giving them the opportunity to extend past their semester if they need it, and ability to return without penalty, academic or financial, is imperative for a student. If a student wasn't able to drop or withdraw from their courses because their orders were cut during the semester, we're trying to remove those barriers for the students. We wanted to also focus on the funding within the college or initiatives for veterans education. Our institution's reliant on those reporting fees that we receive from the VA. Each institution receives $16 a semester each a year, of unpaid students who use VA education benefits in the last year. Or do institutions have actual institutional budget for their departments? And then career guidance, we wanted to see what institutions were doing after a student earned their credential. Do we have relationship industries to assist with postgraduate employment? Are there employment fairs geared toward the military community? What are the institutions doing to leverage the community to assist military affiliated students? And then our next focus was the financial barriers for students. Often the application fee itself can stop a student in their tracks from being able to pursue higher education. So our institutions waiving that application fee if they have one. In-state tuition is very important because VA education benefits or military tuition assistance only pays in-state tuition for VA and only $250 per credit for military and TA. There's currently a law within Indiana that provides in-state tuition for veterans regardless of residency. However, there are those who are still actively serving, not in Indiana, do not live in Indiana, who fall outside of this law. And then we wanted to look at payment plans and payment grace periods. If you're using the post 9/11 GI Bill, your monthly housing allowance comes the month after or the month prior. And if you're having to pay all up front your housing, which is dependents, the children living in housing, having a monthly payment plan versus everything up front is also removing a barrier for your students. As well as military grace period for payment of tuition. As I mentioned, everything comes in a monthly stipend. Not everybody is post 9/11 GI Bill in which they're receiving tuition directly to the college. They have to use their benefit to help pay the tuition. The goal is to increase enrollment by 5,000 in Indiana in institutions. And one way to assist with this is student engagement. If Philip would have spoken this morning, you would have heard him talk about how important it was to feel connected and to have this within his institution that helped him pursue his goal. If you have military affiliated students that are already joined together for this, they already feel connected. In the military, we gravitate toward those people. As a veteran, that was the first place that I went, was my veterans office when I went to college. And that's obviously where I still am. Yeah, military affiliated students on the student government board. This also gives voice to military affiliated students. And then offering training within the institution, like VA state training, which is training regarding suicide prevention, and it's free through the VA. Military culture training to help develop a better understanding about how the military works. Not everybody understands how it is within the military, but that is your job 24/7, no matter what. And having military affiliated faculty and staff directory is very helpful. So that when you have a student that comes to you who is having an issue with maybe their parents are employed and they don't know how to handle this, then you can look up somebody on this directory who may have been in that situation before. And then having a mental health counselor who is also military affiliated, either on campus or as an off-campus referral. And then the Veteran and Military Center, belonging and feeling part of the campus, aids in retention and recruitment. As I had mentioned, Philip had discussed that when he presented to us, that was the first place that he went as well. And that was what helped keep him get engaged. They're in person as well as virtual, because we have a lot of students who either are online students or they do not have the ability to come into the campus. But there can be chaplains for them to talk. Anthony from Purdue University Northwest, he has a virtual room in which his veterans are talking all day, every day. Staying connected and staying engaged. So developing the guidelines for Purple Star designation was taken from our survey questions. Our final recommendation is that there should be a tiered ranking system to allow those institutions that may not have a lot of military affiliated students, but still doing great things, to also qualify for the Purple Star designation. We created a packet that has all of the questions that were asked and the responses.
And great work, a lot of information in that report. And so you might be thinking, well, what next? What are we going to be doing with this? Not to put any pressure on him, but our new director for adult program implementation, Steve St. John, it's not going to be all on his shoulders, but that is one of the very first things I'm handing to him to help us think about how we're moving forward, the lines of action in response to these really well done recommendations. So again, thank you. And then we'll be providing regular updates in the coming months, and you're looking forward to that. Are there any other questions or comments that you'd like to ask?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Stacy, thank you for, not just to you, but to our guests and to all the people that are participating and working in this. It's critically important, and I'm highly supportive of it. However, I have a concern, which probably will be no surprise to you, and that is, what work was put into a standardization and a more quality focus? In other words, it's worrisome to me when I hear that universities kind of set maybe different levels or something like that. The bottom line is there some way of assessing what has been learned and whether it is applicable to toward degrees? That there's a quality component around it so that just somebody can't just come in and say, well, I've got some prior learning and is there some standard in place that is a minimum standard that universities would use in order to provide the credit and then apply it to some advanced learning or program that they want to go through? Can you comment a little bit about that?
Absolutely, and again, we'll put your speaking into the member of the commission to dive a little bit more deeply into this. But I think the policy guidance is the focus that we're developing, the statewide standpoint, is really emphasizing the quality piece of this. Credit for prior learning, the assessment of learning is the purview of faculty and institutions. And undoubtedly, I think the institution would tell you that they're not going to give away credit in that way. So there's built-in mechanisms, and we're trying to encourage a more standardized approach to those mechanisms, a more transparent approach. But I think you won't be disappointed in the language that the task force is working on. And as it applies to the veterans field, the military training, there is an external organization, the American Council on Education, that helps provide resources to show the quality and the evaluation of that credit and the recommendations thereof.
Thank you.
Chris, when we kicked this task force off on 1 February, we had a room full of the subject matter experts, as Stacy had illustrated. And one of the first things that was said at our opening meeting was, we need to get schools to accept ACE recommendations. That was 100% agreement, because we have some schools, some faculty who won't even consider it. So we've got to get that taken care of and then make sure that the quality is there. But just arbitrarily saying, we're not even going to look at credit for prior learning or in ACE recommendations, that was probably one of the biggest things that came out of this task force. So we have to work through that as well. But a great question.
Yes. Yes, thank you. Outstanding presentation, and kudos to everyone on your work. I have a couple of questions and then maybe a suggestion. So question number one, as to the 40%, I have some credential, we have some disaggregation as to where they are on a scale that doesn't kind of know the field here, but for the 40% of this 800,000 people, 90% of those are 10% away from 10 credits away from. It's like we're looking at a situation where we have 700,000 people with 2 credits. We have a long way to go. Basically, they finished after 1 semester. So what are we looking at in terms of the field?
Really big question. So that data, the 750,000, 40% estimate, that's census, that comes from census. So we don't necessarily know from a credit standpoint where they are in ladder, but I can tell you that I believe it was right before I left the commission a few years ago, that we started the You Can Go Back initiative, which was the adult outreach campaign. And we worked with institutions to identify those who were within a certain credit range from completing. And I don't recall offhand how many members there were at that time, but it was significantly less than the 750,000. So I would imagine that we're probably looking at a large population that their first step is going to be perhaps skills training that could then crosswalk credit with prior learning into the form of a short-term certificate and onward.
Thank you. Second question. There are a lot of great ideas here, but I see that a number of the ideas are focused on military veterans. I'm wondering whether or not these same ideas would be applied to broader the population.
Yes, so these are, I really like to look at this work as a blueprint for everything that we're doing in the adult strategy. We do have these goals specific to these populations, but once you have that infrastructure, once you have those connections across the ecosystem, it's that much easier to address the needs of everyone.
Thank you. And then finally, just in terms of the slide after the slide with 2 million, we have barrier removal for adult learners. And in your helpful diagram, on one hand, there's a space for addressing the specific issue of preparation and overall readiness. So I see the supporting principles, and I see the potential barriers. Within the potential barriers, on one hand, if there's a specific barrier that deals with what I call lack of stewardship. I don't know how to be a student. Perhaps that's what's got me a problem. That's what had me here in the first place. Couldn't be the family circumstances, but there is within that group of individuals who I am not skilled in stewardship. I don't know how to do that. And being a student is a skill. People, it's developed, it's a learned skill. Some people have been taught by their parents since kindergarten, first grade. Some people have never been taught. They don't know why they struggle. I think it's mental or academic, all the time, the skill that they lack. But there are opportunities for the parent to this actually say this is what excellent stewardship looks like. The second part really goes into motivation and commitment. So again, somebody prepared me to help me understand even what I want to go back because there's this lack level issue. I can't move. I have the assignments. Everything sounds good, but here's an assignment for me. I just can't seem to do it. Well, other people are moving, other people are engaging. So get somebody prepared in terms of preparation and commitment. And I'm invested versus facility. And then just thirdly, if people know. And it's my question about whether we're using great ideas and getting them to the wide population as possible. So if everybody knows that there are opportunities that the state of Indiana is pushing, or there's an on-ramp for me where I can get access to this right away, so information through church. Here's an opportunity so that people know about it. So those are the thoughts that I will share just to possibly add to the great process you already developed. Thank you.
Thank you for those. And, one could say that could be folded up into some of these, but I like the idea of really highlighting the motivation, the grit, the challenges around preparation, and then the communication and the awareness. Thank you.
And I would say, some people, then as a part of that education, the consciousness raising, when people learn, hey, here the young lady was actually taking the bar exam, preparing for the bar 3 months after she'd given birth, 4 years of ladies in law school, 55 years of age, getting their law degree. Because people have to be able to like some stuff, life is hard, but here are people out here who are managing these types of things, and yet they're demonstrating that commitment, that create that asset people, they're just really going after it. Some people can learn.
Thank you. And I will add that as part of our anticipated broader outreach and engagement with our communication marketing team, we're going to be looking at what we have as resources at the commission, we have existing platforms that have been utilized over the years that we can take, again, to sharpen the message, to sharpen the navigation. Thank you.
Can I follow on that a little bit? I appreciate Vince's comments and Kristen's very much. I am a veteran myself and went through the experience of separating from the military and then having it this orientation where you go and not feeling too embracing. So I do appreciate the original comment you made about friendliness versus engagement and readiness. And credit our resident general for leadership of military leaders to take care of the troops, and obviously he's decided to continue that great legacy and retiring. So I appreciate that very much. I think, you know, the veteran community is unique in some respects, and there's a lot of variables as to why you go in, but they tend to be different than why you go into other things. And so I think it's important that you're engaging, you're feeling the fire, and it costs someone to make that decision in the first place. As far as the quality is concerned, I do think that's important. Standardization is important, but I personally found this somewhat anecdotal that I was not given enough credit for the learning experience because the quality was higher in many cases than my experience when I left and then did 3 degrees afterwards. So I was well prepared as a result, and the prior learning credits ended up being to me more about respect, I think, for past efforts than actually the credit and the monetary value. So I think there's an intangible quality that you're coming at here that we should take full advantage of, and that has to do with engagement. In terms of knowing that was a challenge for me, I'm sure for many people. And so to follow along with Vincent's question about awareness, what kind of financial resources exist for communication? Are we doing it in aggregate? Do we have the right resources that are needed to make the appeals to the sources that be general somebody or elsewhere to be able to identify individually these folks started to come in to our state and that we're able to put a personal touch to the engagement piece? Is that part of this, or the resources identified? Is there more work that needs to be done there? That would be my question.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, there are some existing resources, and just kind of connecting those. But I know I have been trying to wrap my head around what we might be able to ask in terms of a broader adult strategy from our philanthropy partners and trying to get to us and really moving it towards not only that programmatic support approach we need to help those individuals navigate, but also what is it that we could ask to help us change that system altogether. And so, yes, ma'am.
Thanks. Thanks, Bill and Dennis, and to the awareness point and general servants communications and navigation point on CV quick. One person anecdote again, example of a Saturday last week I worked on my farm with my senior in college who was home for the weekend, and his best friend who is home for the long weekend from the Air Force in Kansas. And we were there at the moment where we were waiting. The friend, the Air Force friend, was telling me what he's doing. He's in the skill training program through the military. He's being paid to work for Raytheon right now. He will be done with the service in February. He's at Southern New Hampshire University. He would like to get back to the Muncie area. He wants to go to Ball State, get his graduate degree. And I was on student success. I was there virtually, but I was listening to that and everything. So that happened, and then I had this conversation last Saturday. But he said, I'm struggling to find the way. And I think it's 3 clicks on the commission's website to look at our, might be 2. I don't know, to get to the opportunities in the state for veterans. But he was having trouble. He just said, I just want someone to talk to figure out how to work this so I can get back to Indiana. So, you know, he said there's a ton of other opportunities, but he wants to go to Ball State. He wants to continue on, I think, a great time. But anyway, I just thought that was interesting. I was sitting on the track here, you know, it's like I could probably find me some points of contact there, but I think it was just indicative of what everyone was saying about the awareness and how we make this easy to find information. So I think that's so important to make a pathway to information of how to make this work for the people that are finishing their service and don't have that discerning vision as they come out. I think that's so important. So thank you for all the work you're doing.
I just want to say thank you, Stacy, for all you've done. To the presenters here, Jason and Lori and Allegra online and Art Lee, who is probably having fun somewhere. For all your leadership and help. And also we had, Jose Medina and Arna Calafero, who helped us with note taking and keeping us together too. So there was a lot of the commission members working on this effort. So thanks to all, and we just got to execute.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'd like to make a comment on this. I didn't, committee member, Chairman, General, thank you. 6 month time when we gave all of us, all I was supporting cast, was the way we need to do these things. And thank you for the leadership. Also to the folks who volunteered their time. You saw the list that Stacy had. They did this because they wanted to. And yes, some of them have connected to their roles, their jobs, so they put a lot more time in these meetings during the day to get us to this point. A couple of things I guess are with the state. 2 words I really found compelling were to, one, help demystify what this looks like. You reflected that in the comments by your friend. And the recognition that it's okay right now to a degree is just not right. So the degree that we can make less okay to demystify this thing is critically important. There's a thoughtfulness in this. The questions that were asked is sort of tangential. I think there's your question about disaggregating. Folks, I mentioned this morning about how this team just digs in. I literally glanced over at Aaron, Dennis, as you were saying, it's Aaron, the new person on our business intelligence team, and he was going like this. We knew what we were saying to each other. He just, I bet he's probably got something in front of him already, or he's pulling that data apart. People should know that. But these questions help Tom us to do this, because we don't think of all of these. The broader population, Dennis, again, I think there's a great point, and we as a team held hands and said, look, we're going to focus on our veterans and those current serving the military, those in disabilities just involved, all because one of the specific populations, but we should be working on those, but the broader when you get to it, we apply to more adults. So thank you for that question, and we want you to know that's the case. Your point stems to preparation, motivation, and how we message in the churches and other places today, and the grit that people oftentimes have. Folks, I would tell you, yesterday, the 7 young people I met with, and we should all have hope for the future. I heard it in their stories, and I don't have the ability to share what I heard. Wow. I wonder if this is impressive young people, but I'll tell you the grit that has brought them here, like those in the military and others are, we should always think about. And Bill, I appreciate just greatly your words. You refer to respect. And I made a note to myself while our friends were talking that the number one goal about our government, of this beautiful democracy that we live in, is to secure the freedom of our human nation. And if I know something more compelling that drives us to think of respect and honoring, not just making it friendly, but making it engaging, making it easy, making it something that people see, not just here in Indiana, but out of state, and they say, I want to be there. I can't think of a population where we all want to be fixed on. So, thank you for leadership, and Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you for the privilege. Thanks, Commissioner. Okay. Now I'm going to ask Chris Lowe to provide an update from the budget and productivity. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our committee met August 31st. It was probably, in all the years that I've been with the commission, I don't think we have ever had a meeting that we looked at so many building projects across our state, by our universities. We have 8 projects that will be expedited or recommended for expedited, and then full discussion on 5 projects. So I don't know if we're going to be doing that at this particular time, or we're doing it later in the meeting right now. So I will ask Seth to come up. Is that correct, Seth? Go ahead.
If you're done with your report, then I'll just start going through the list.
Okay, let's do that.
Thank you, Chris. So we'll call the first project is the Indiana University, Purdue University, Indianapolis Medical Education and Neuroscience Research Building Build Out. You can find this in your agenda on page 37. I'd like to invite Dr. Tom Morrison, Vice President of Capital Planning and Facilities at Indiana University, to present this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission and commissioner. Pleasure to be with you today. I just have one project for your review. And it is on our Indianapolis campus connected to the School of Medicine. As you're aware, we have a very large project going on in downtown Indianapolis in conjunction with our colleagues at IU Health to build what will be one of the largest healthcare facilities in not only the state and the region. It is probably in tandem the largest construction project in the history of the state of Indiana. As part of that, the IU School of Medicine is building a new headquarters building there that you approved a couple of years ago. This project today is the fit out of the top 3 floors for research labs, floors 8, 9, and 10. This is something we always intended to do. We shelved those spaces in construction. The construction right now has about another 16 months to go on this piece of the project. And so it is an ideal time to seek approval for the build out of those spaces for research labs. It is a $30 million build out and will allow us to fit those labs for the purposes of research related to neurosciences and cancer research, among others. We always intended to seek to build out these labs at some point in time. Doing it this way in process gave us time to work on funding and specific use of those facilities. And so it really is an ideal time to seek approval. The other thing that I would add is I get a lot of questions about this project, the bigger project, and it probably has nothing to do with the project other than your traffic driving through downtown Indianapolis and when it's going to be done. And our part of the project has, as I said, about another 16 months to go. Hospital part of the project has about another 4 years to go. So on behalf of my colleagues at IU and IU Health, we apologize. So be happy to answer any questions that you might have. $30 million and from both philanthropic and School of Medicine.
Questions for Dr. Morrison? All right, I'd like to bring up Seth and Sean to provide a staff recommendation.
Mr. Chair, going to come back and forth this for later time. Perfect. Amazing. Well, very pleased to highlight this project. As Tom mentioned, it's a very research focused project, which does align with our new updates to application formula, and specifically providing an opportunity for additional research grants and educational opportunities for students to take place here. And so with that, staff recommends approval of this project.
Okay, any questions for staff? All right, can I have a motion?
Just a quick comment, but I think that would have to be, I would like to do it.
Sure. We'll do the vote first.
I'll move.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, motion passes.
Can I just bring up a highlight, not related to the, necessarily directly related to the construction of this facility or, actually is, but it's not related to the building itself. It's related to what goes on in that type of environment, the neuroscience. I don't know. I spent a lot of time in the life sciences world, obviously, and got a lot of these things top of mind. And for those of you who don't know, maybe you just been on press recently, but Indiana's place in the neuroscience world, Indiana's state as well as Indiana University, Purdue, and others certainly is really unbelievably outsized right now. IU, there was a meeting in Brussels, no, I'm sorry, it was in, I think it's in Amsterdam, the Alzheimer's Association, Global Alzheimer's Association, that is the national meeting, and IU was like the star of the show. I mean, it had unbelievable number of top level research projects that were recognized, investment in all of those. The number one award winner was an IU faculty member from Bloomington. And combine that with what's going on, obviously, with our partners at Lilly and others in this Alzheimer neuroscience space. I just think it's important to know, aside from all the great teaching and learning, the research that's going on and the capability for Indiana to really be a global, and already is, but be a global player in such a debilitating disease that affects so many people. It's really pretty remarkable and pretty cool. So kudos to everyone involved.
Thanks, Dan. And I've been able to visit the space a couple of times with Dr. Morrison and most recently on another tour a couple of weeks ago. But the facilities are going to be fantastic. It'll be amazing. A whole space there downtown when that's finished. Okay, the second project is the Indiana State University Center for Technology, Engineering, and Design. This can be found on your agenda, page 47. I'd like to invite Diane McKee, Senior Vice President for Finance and Administration and University Treasurer, to the podium to present this up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Indiana State University is here before you today to request approval for a $66 million renovation of our technology annex and various improvements in the adjacent Myers Technology Center. This project was authorized by a cash appropriation as a part of the 2023-25 biennial budget bill that was passed by the Indiana General Assembly this past legislative session. The renovation of the technology annex facility into a center for technology, engineering, and design represented our number one capital priority request. In fact, it was the only request that the university proposed for funding. Some of the commission members and Chair Lowry last summer at your last visit in June to our campus had an opportunity to tour this facility. It has been included as a part of our campus master plan since 2016. The technology annex building was constructed in 1980 and it houses academic programs in the Bailey College of Engineering and Technology. The project will include complete replacement of outdated and obsolete mechanical and electrical systems and repair and rehabilitation of exterior building components. There is a STEM addition that is also planned for the building to make sure that we can have advanced technology for our graduates in order that they can enter the workforce and fill the workforce needs not only in the region, but the state of Indiana. This addition will also allow us to have a main entryway that is fully accessible at grade, and thereby providing a more accessible facility for our students, faculty, and visitors. In terms of the adjacent Myers Technology Center, there will be very limited improvements in that facility, and they will be mainly improvements to heating, cooling, and ventilation systems, as well as renovating the lower level of that facility to house aviation and advanced flight simulators. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions? And Seth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. As I mentioned, this project received the commission's full support. Its November meeting last year, followed by the General Assembly support. The project has maintained the same scope since that time. And I've made this comment and noted this for the BDC committee members, but I think it's worth again pointing out that this is clearly a high priority for Indiana State University, as this facility is located right next door to President Curtis's residence. And so I think the impact on her coming and goings kind of highlights the degree to which they view this as a priority. And with that in mind, staff recommends approval of this project.
Thanks, Ed. All right, can I have a motion?
Move approval. Second.
Yeah, several motions. All right, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Project is approved. The third project is the Purdue University West Lafayette Home Brand Residence Hall South. That's located in your agenda, page 55. And Alicia Nassar, Director of Government Relations and Fiscal Policy Analysis, will present this item, I believe, virtually.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Appreciate you allowing me to present virtually today. So this first project in front of you is our Hillenbrand Residence Hall South. This project is $149 million, which will be funded by non-fee replaced debt, specifically our auxiliary housing and dining revenue. So the South building will be physically connected to the existing Hillenbrand dorm, which is an honors dorm. The South building will be 8 stories, 252,000 gross square feet, with 896 new pod style beds for first year students. We will also be expanding the existing Hillenbrand dining hall by an additional 300 seats for a total of 800 seats. And then we'll include some new academic space for the data mine. And this project ties back to the Housing Committee on Student Wellbeing that we have at Purdue West Lafayette. To give you some background, our enrollment has increased by 31% since 2013. Because freshmen do have priority for on-campus housing, as our incoming class sizes have gotten larger, there are fewer available spaces for sophomores. Last academic year, we actually had to turn away about 1,800 sophomores who were wanting to live on campus. So there's definitely a need for this housing on campus from students, and we don't see the desire to live on campus changing anytime soon. So with that, I am happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Alicia? All right, thank you, Alicia. Seth, will you give the staff recommendation?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. As Alicia mentioned, there's an extreme demand for housing on campus, with many students unable, unfortunately, to receive on-campus housing due to that demand. And we view this as a good step forward in alleviating that problem or concern. So with that in mind, staff recommends approval of this project.
Thanks, Seth. You have a motion?
Motion. Seconded.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, the project is approved. Alicia, thank you. All right. Going down the list here, we're to the fourth project. And this is the Purdue University West Lafayette Nursing and Pharmacy Education Building. That's on agenda page 63. And I'm going back over to Alicia.
Thank you. So this next project is, of course, as you said, our nursing and pharmacy education building. This was our #1 priority that was funded in the 2023 budget. The total of this project is $160 million, with $89 million coming from cash appropriations from the state, $45 million that we have raised in gift funds, and then another $26 million in operating fund reserves. So as a refresher, this project is going to be a construction of 186,000 gross square foot facility to centrally support the School of Nursing and the College of Pharmacy. These programs are now spread across 4 different buildings throughout campus. Included in this will also be the demolishing of 4 aging buildings on campus, in part to make room for this new building. It's going to provide modern clinical, instructional, student support, and research spaces, as well as locate both of these programs to our other health science buildings. So research support and spaces for animal and behavioral testing will also be included in this building. Just a couple of points on our nursing and pharmacy schools. 70% of Purdue's nursing graduates practice in Indiana, and about 66% of Indiana pharmacists are Purdue graduates. I know Chris Lamoth asked about the increase in our graduates with this building. Right now, we graduate around 150 students annually for pharmacy. We will increase that by 15 new graduates a year on average. And then nursing, we graduate about 230 students annually. And this new building will have capacity to graduate. We expect around 65 new graduates annually. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? All right. Seth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. As highlighted by Alicia, the increase in graduate component of this is obviously very exciting for the commission, and the goals outlined in outcomes-based performance funding formula. And I'll also add my appreciation for Purdue for nearly half of this project, although it did receive $89 million state journalistically support following the commission's recommendation. It has nearly gone above a match that we've operated and gift funds as well to really turn this into a much larger, much more substantial project for the campus. So with that in mind, staff recommends approval of this project.
Thank you. All right, take a motion.
So moved.
Second. Motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, the motion is approved. The project is approved. So thank you, Alicia. All right. The last project is the Purdue University West Lafayette Airport Terminal. This is on page 71 of your agenda book, and Alicia will go one more time here.
I'll be quick. So this last project is the Purdue Airport Terminal, a total of $11.8 million, with $7 million coming from the state, but it's specifically ready dollars, and $3.3 million of gift funds, as well as 1.5 from federal grants. So this project is a little different than the usual projects we bring before you. It is part of the Greater Lafayette Regional Original Ready submission, which has a plan to bring commercial passenger service back to the Purdue Airport. The project would be a new 10,000 gross square foot terminal, which would be adjacent to the existing terminal. It would also include space for ticketing, passenger screening, baggage claim, and an waiting area, as well as new short-term parking and some other safety improvements. The existing terminal that we have now is not TSA compliant, but this new terminal, of course, would have to be TSA compliant for this commercial service. So we would also still continue to have business-oriented service, as well as our students using the airport, and then add this in addition to what we offer at our airport. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Do you have any questions? Seth?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. One of the capital expedited projects also relates with the airport and surrounding lease, and in that window, there's a significant 40-year lease term for the operators of the airport, who are also going to be investing several $million into the airport facilities. That's in the expedited portion of the packet. So I just wanted to highlight that to bring to mind the I guess, full scope of investment that's taking place at the Purdue University airport, through capital projects. But that mindset is recommended approval of this project. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, the project is approved. Thanks, Alicia.
Mr. Chairman, could I just say
Yeah,
something?
go ahead.
Some of you may have seen some Wall Street Journal investigative reporting around universities that are hiking tuitions and building, kind of Taj Mahals, and there was some correlation insinuated between the student loan problem that we have in this country and, many new gorgeous buildings. And, just want the group to know that the members of the Budget and Productivity Committee looked into that. We looked at some financials of some of our universities, and, if you think about how we've held the line on tuition, but also you hear it in these presentations, these are thoughtful projects, and there's a significant amount of gift funding and non-operating kind of funding and other sorts of grants that our universities put forth in these projects. So I just wanted the group to know that your committee does look at these thoroughly. We do not rubber stamp. There's some vigorous conversations on some of them, and what are the funding sources, et cetera. So if you did see that Wall Street Journal article, well, I think it's worthy of considering, and we should challenge ourselves, and we should challenge our universities when we see something that looks a bit out of line. But I think that I commend our universities that the projects they bring forward are well documented in terms of need, and the funding sources are varied. So I just wanted to offer that to the commission, and thank you to our universities.
Thanks, Nancy. Well, I think it's so important because, just when I'm out with friends, this is what gets talked about. And the discussion comes up about the value of higher ed in general, but especially like articles like that bring those kind of conversations up. So I think it's really important to make that statement and understand how deeply the committee dives into that when we're looking at these projects. Thank you. Now we're into the expedited portion of capital projects. And we have 8, I believe. They're on page 79. And if there are no questions, do we have any questions on any of the 8 that are listed? May I have a motion?
Move approval. Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, projects are approved. And we currently, I think we're on time. All right, we're going to call an audible here. We have a little time. If Tony Arnold's ready, we're going to coming up. So Tony's going to give us a presentation here on career and technical education portion of the day. That's kind of interactive lunch. So he's going to talk about the update on the 2023 state strategic plan. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you, and good morning.
Morning.
So it is a pleasure to be here today. I am very fortunate to get to serve as the state director of CTE. And obviously this is my first chance to address the commission as a member of the commission staff. So excited about that. I would like to take this opportunity to share on behalf of myself and our team that our reception and transition to the commission has been outstanding. The effort that went in, specifically with Michelle, Seth, and Josh, to make that transition as smooth as possible, and to make sure that we were getting all the T's crossed and the I's dotted, has been exceptional, and is one of the true benefits that I think for CTE as we move forward, is the support of the commission as a whole for CTE. So with that being said, I do want to, there is one item of business that we need to take care of. But we are planning to do a deeper dive into career and technical education at the November meeting. We will get into all sorts of aspects about what types of programs do we oversee and do we monitor, as well as, you know, how do we ensure quality within those programs, and, you know, what opportunities do we have to improve in those areas. But with that being said, we want to hold off on those types of questions, but there is one item of business that needs to be addressed to finalize that transition of CTE to the Commission for Higher Ed and to meet the requirements of the U.S. Department of Education. The U.S. Department of Education is the federal agency that oversees the Carl D. Perkins Grant, which is the federal grant that we received for CTE funding. It is also the part of the legislation that establishes the commission as the eligible agency then for CTE. So that was when 1002 gave authority to the commission for CTE, that essentially placed the commission as an eligible agency here. I've included in the presentation a definition of what the eligible agency is. There will be times that, you know, periodically throughout the year that we will come to the commission and need your support, need your approval on certain aspects of this. So with that being said, before we kind of finalize the current CTE plan, I wanted to kind of give you a little bit of an idea of what's in there and what takes place. If you are not familiar with the Carl D. Perkins Act, it is a federal grant that provides funding for CTE. Indiana receives about $32 million for the Carl D. Perkins Grant. About 90% of this is redistributed to secondary and post-secondary recipients. The other 10% we can use for the administration of the grant, as well as leadership opportunities in terms of like program of study development, or if there are initiatives that we think will improve outcomes for students, we can use those funds for those purposes as well. I think it is really important to kind of keep in mind, though, that Indiana is very fortunate that in addition to the Carl D. Perkins Grant and the federal funding that we receive, we expect to spend about $200 million just on CTE enrollments alone. That does not include additional state funding that would come as a result of like 1002 and career scholarship accounts. So the reason I share that is because Indiana is heavily invested in career and technical education, and the actual Perkins funding really represents about 1/6 or 1/7 of the total investment that we put into CTE in the state of Indiana. The state plan that has currently been submitted and been approved was developed in 2020 as part of the WIOA combined plan. That current plan details how the grant will be utilized to meet the requirements of the grant. It also identifies our performance targets for both secondary and post-secondary CTE programs. The way I would say that Perkins really influences this is it helps us to set the vision for CTE in the state of Indiana. Most of the requirements, the performance targets, are all based upon best practices and current trends going forward. So that will really help us as we move forward. 2023, 2024 does represent the final year for the current plan. And unfortunately, the current plan was due to be submitted to the U.S. Department of Ed in May, which was before CTE officially transitioned on July 1st. So that is the reason why we're back here. And it may seem a little bit awkward that we're asking the commission to approve a current plan that has already been submitted and approved at the U.S. Department of Education. One thing before we take care of that business, I would like to talk about like the next steps. Our transition to the commission, the timing of the state plan, the need for the development of the new state plan really does kind of create an opportunity for us to level set and to create a new strategic vision for CTE as a part of the Commission for Higher Education. So we are really looking forward to that opportunity. Indiana is one of 4 states that have been selected to receive technical support from Advanced CTE. Advanced CTE is the national organization of state CTE directors, which Indiana has been a longtime member of, and they provide a tremendous amount of support and professional development for our team. That plan development process, both the strategic plan as well as specifically a new state CTE plan for Perkins, will include some self-assessment that has already been taking place, which includes a review of our current plan as well as our data. It will also include a great deal of stakeholder engagement, which it wasn't necessarily on top of our minds, but the visit that we had with Brown County Schools and Prosser Career Center is certainly going to play a part in that aspect of the development of the plan as stakeholder engagement. And then, as I mentioned, data analysis is something that we know we have to do a better job of. And we are going to start looking at that in like November and January. Part of the reason why that is pushed so late is we are still trying to gather the most recent results from the 22-23 school year for both secondary and post-secondary. So once we have all that data collected, then we'll be ready to kind of dive into that data and tell us to look at that. All of the updates that will come as a result of that state plan and that strategic plan will go through the Academic Affairs and Quality Committee. And then we would welcome any engagement on behalf of commission members into any part of this process. With that, I want to just kind of open it up if there's any questions about the state plan, and we'll go from there.
I just a quick question. Indiana is one of 4 states that were selected for this. Why?
Because we applied for it. They provided it's not really a grant opportunity. They received the grant funding, but they are receiving the grant funding to provide the support. One thing, when we created the last state plan, it was part of the combined plan with WIOA. The state has chosen to move to a unified plan for WIOA, which sounds like that would mean that we're more inclusive, but it really doesn't. It means that all the programs are kind of separated out and completed on their own. The other thing is that we're not comfortable with the level of stakeholder engagement that was collected during the last process specifically for CTE. It was included as part of the process for the WIOA plan. And so I think this will give us a better idea or a better understanding of really getting CTE specific stakeholder involvement.
Can I ask a follow-on? It's much related to that, but can you expand on, as you go forward with the new plan, in particular related to how you envision engagement with some of the key industry sectors in the state, how to make sure that, we're targeting the things that provide the most need and most opportunity for students?
So we have a couple of different things in mind. I mean, one thing that we will put together is we want to put together an advisory board that will meet a couple of times during this process. We want to be able to take to that advisory board things like our data analysis, as well as the feedback that we've received from stakeholders to help them kind of affirm what we're hearing, and also to maybe provide suggestions and input. Certainly as a part of that advisory board would be included some of our strategic partners that we've been working with for several years now, including Connexus, Ascend, TechPoint, as well as the Department of Workforce Development and members of the Governor's Workforce Cabinet. So we certainly don't want to lose those partnerships that we've developed over the last few years. So that's one aspect of that. I think the other aspect of that is we are just now in the process of all of our CTE districts and our post-secondary recipients have to complete what is called the Comprehensive Local Needs Assessment. As a part of that Comprehensive Local Needs Assessment, all of those recipients are required to participate in a regional collaboration meeting that is led by the region workforce boards. Part of that process will be to gather some feedback from industry, the workforce boards, around how is CTE meeting their current needs, and also taking a look at like what the labor market data is telling us. So those are the two primary ways, but that is certainly one avenue that we want to make sure stands out in our next state plan.
Thank you.
So I have a question. It's sort of a stupid question, I think. I must say, my mind is fuzzy about CTE, about what your agency does. And WIOA is a acronym I've used in the past, but I can't remember what it is. Can you give just an overview of, and your agency is being transferred to the commission, is that right? Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, so our agency was transferred as of July 1st as a part of HEA 1002. WIOA stands for, I'm probably going to get this wrong, but I believe it's the Workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act, which is the primary federal workforce development bill or grant. As far as like what our agency does, we are essentially responsible for overseeing and monitoring all of the secondary and post-secondary CTE programs of study in the state and how they would utilize Perkins funding. So we have the opportunity to play a role in approving programs. More importantly, at this point, we're playing a role in the development and implementation of our programs of study. I would say that most people, when they hear CTE, they think of CTE as, oh, well, that's vocational education. Certainly the trades are a part of what we do, but we have expanded a great deal to include other areas as far as healthcare, business, IT, and the list kind of goes on and on. So we actually have 16 different career clusters that our programs fit into.
So are you working directly with our, like Ivy Tech and other schools of higher ed, or are you working directly with employers, or who exactly, what are the mechanics of what you do?
So the answer to that is yes to all of the above. Ivy Tech and Vincennes University are both our post-secondary recipients. Ivy Tech is based upon their major campuses are each a recipient for Perkins. The reason why those are the post-secondary institutions that are eligible post-secondary recipients is because the majority of their credentials that are awarded are associate degrees and below. So they are receiving Perkins funds. In addition to that, I would say that, and we will get more in depth with this in November, but all of the new programs of study that we have just developed are directly aligned in as many cases as possible to either Ivy Tech or VU programs. And this will help students to not only obtain the post-secondary credit, but also attain credentials and post-secondary credentials either while they're in high school or make enough progress that they can complete those on time afterwards. There's a very in-depth process as far as how those programs are developed in conjunction with industry and employers.
Thank you. And you're going to be making a larger presentation in November. Did I hear you say that?
Yes.
You might mention how many CTE centers there are across the state.
Yeah, so we actually have 53 secondary recipients. Those recipients are combinations of co-ops, which could be a collection of schools, or we have about 29 or 30 actual career centers that service CTE districts across the state. And then, as I mentioned, the two post-secondary partners are Vincennes and then each of the major Ivy Tech campuses.
Thank you. But you are going to present in November, is that right?
Yes, and we'll go into much more details about the programs of study and the alignment with post-secondary. We'll also try to help make those connections between, why is it appropriate for CTE to be a part of the Commission for Higher Education at that time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Al. Thanks, Tony. We'll look forward to that in November. Could you do one we're called for the vote?
Sure.
Could you give me a sentence or two of what we're asking for?
So all we are asking for is the commission's approval of the 2023, 2024 state Perkins program requirements. Once we have that, we will submit the minutes of the vote to the U.S. Department of Ed, along with a couple of other small items, and then that will formally and be able to finalize that transition of CTE to the Commission for Higher Education.
Excellent. All right, we're going to vote on here, so I will take a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? All right, motion approved. Okay. With that, I think we're now ready to take a recess. We're going to go for lunch. Commission members, we're going to head to the orchestra room, which is OG-160, for a lunch presentation, and we'll continue our meeting back here at 1 p.m. So thank you.
Do we need an hour yet? Everything, try to make it 12:30 or 12:30.
Hey, sounds about right. This is on. Do we have sound, please? Staff, we have sound.
Is it off?
We need sound. It's turned on.
Someone, I heard it.
Hello?
Oh,